It is 1956. Imagine that. A small Creek community in Ogbia local government area, Otuabagi. A place most Nigerians could not find on a map. And honestly, most still cannot. The people there are fishermen, farmers. They wake up with the river. They go to bed with it. The creeks are their roads, their markets, their life. It is a quiet existence, an honest one. Then one day, Shell BP arrives. Foreign engineers, strange equipment, languages the community does not speak and understand. They are drilling, testing, poking at the earth, and then it happens. January 15th, 1956. The drill hits something dark, something that shoots up with a force that nobody in the community had ever seen. Oil, crude oil, right there in Otuabage, right there in Bayelsa State. I know there has been misinformation about Oloibiri being the birthplace of commercial oil in Nigeria. Just to be clear and be up to date with information, Otuabagi is the actual community in Bayelsa and Ogbia. At the time, Oloibiri was the district head, and typical with the multinationals, they had to name the first oil well after the district head and not the community itself. Anyways, this episode is not about that. Nigeria's first commercial oil discovery, not in Lagos, not in Abuja, not in Kano, but in a small creek community in what is today Bayelsa State. The elders must have gathered. The young men must have whispered to each other, "What is this? What does it mean for us?" There must have been excitement, maybe pride, maybe fear, probably all three at once. But here is what nobody told those communities clearly enough. Here is what no one sat them down to explain. That black liquid beneath their feet was going to make Nigeria stinkingly rich, and it was going to make their home a wasteland. Gas flares, burning night and day for decades, oil spills, turning rivers black, fishes dying, farmlands destroyed, children growing up in communities that provided the wealth for an entire nation but had no pipe-borne water, no hospital, no road, no schools, no social amenities, nothing. The creeks gave everything. The people received almost nothing. That is the Otuabagi story. That is the Niger Delta story. That is the story we have living for nearly 70 years. Now it is 2025, and guess what? Bayelsa is back in the news. Same land, different treasure. They are calling it this time around the black sand. And I need you to sit and understand this with me. This is not coincidence. Don't that they say does not just strike the same place twice by accident. God has looked at this land, our land, and said, "I have not finished with Bayelsa. There is more here. There is more for these people, our people, for me and you. If only they will receive it wisely this time." Welcome to the Southern Voices podcast, where we speak straight, no filters, and no protocols. I am your host, Jessica Charles Ades, and today we are going to make sure that this time around, Bayelsa knows what it is holding, and Bayelsa demands what it deserves. So, what exactly is black sand? Let me be your professor for a few minutes, because the worst thing that can happen to a blessed people is to be uninformed about their own blessing. Now, black sand is a dark mineral-rich sand found along Bayelsa's coastal line in communities like Age, Ogbetu, Brass communities, amongst others. It looks very ordinary. You might walk past it every day if you live near those shores. But inside it, inside the sand, are minerals that the world is urgently chasing right now, like ilmenite, used to make parts for aircrafts, rutile, used in medical equipment, zircon, used in ceramics and nuclear technology, magnetite, used in industrial processes, monazite, rich in rare earth technologies to power the devices you're using to probably watch this podcast. These are not just dusty industrial chemicals. These are 21st century minerals. Renewable energy needs them. Artificial intelligence hardware needs them. Space technology needs them. Electric vehicles needs them. The global demand is rising faster than supply, and Bayelsa is sitting on them. So this is not a local story dressed up. This is a global story with a Bayelsa address. I want to be very clear about something here. I am not here to scare you away from what God has placed in our land, Bayelsa State. I just want to make sure you understand just how massive this opportunity is. Because understanding it is what will make you and I demand it is handled correctly. For decades, Bayelsa economy has been anchored to crude oil. When oil prices fall globally, Bayelsa bleeds locally. When production cuts are ordered, our state budget shrinks. One commodity, one master. That is not prosperity. That is dependency. Black sand mining done right can break that chain. A second revenue stream that does not expire when the oil runs out. processing industries built right here in Bayelsa State, factories that employ our engineers, our geologists, our young people who are currently leaving the state to find opportunities that should exist at home. Royalties flowing directly to coastal communities like Age, Ogbetu, Brass communities that have given and given their land, their water, their fish, sometimes their peace of mind, and even their lives. It is time the word flows back, not as Christmas gifts from a governor, but as legal entitlements, as rights. Let's zoom out to the entire South region, Rivers, Delta, Edo, Cross River, Akwa Ibom. Imagine this region negotiating with the federal government from a position of documented, well-governed mineral abundance, not from desperation, not from the bottom of a conference table, from the very top. That future is possible, but only if we get the governance right. And this is where the joy has to pause just for a moment, because love means telling the truth. It was Otuambagi in 1956. And look at what happened after. We did not control the process. We did not set the terms. We did not insist on environmental protections or community benefit agreements before the drilling began. Foreign companies came. Federal government collected the revenue. And what was Bayelsa left with? Bayelsa was left holding the environmental bill. The Niger Delta was left holding the environmental bill. The gas flares, the oil spills, the contaminated rivers, the broken communities. Fast forward to today, reports are already emerging that foreign entities have been quietly entering Bayelsa coastal communities, signing private agreements with local leaders, completely bypassing the state governments, loading black sand onto vehicles, moving it out, no environmental assessment, no government oversight, no benefit to the community, absolutely nothing. Yes, security agencies have made arrests. Good. But arrests are a reaction. What we need is a system. What we need is prevention. What we need is governance that is in place before the rush fully begins, not scrambling to catch up after the damage is done. History does not have to repeat itself, but it will if we are silent, if we are complicit, if our leaders choose convenience over community. Let me give you the facts, because your safety literally depends on understanding them. Some black sand deposits contain a mineral called monazite, which carries naturally occurring radioactive elements like thorium and uranium. If these are improperly managed, mining can expose workers and nearby communities to harmful radiation over time. This is not a scare story, it is a documented science. The Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority must be at the table from day one, not called in after damage is already done. First, water. Bayelsa is a water state. Our rivers are not just scenery, they are survival. Research conducted right here in Bayelsa shows that sand mining can introduce heavy metals into our waterways, like lead, cadmium, chromium. These kill fishes. They contaminate drinking water. In a state where people fish to eat and eat to live, water pollution is not just an environmental issue. It is a human rights crisis. Secondly, coastal erosion. People often forget this one. Black sand physically protects our coastline. It buffers communities from flooding. Removing it carelessly and you invite the sea into people's homes at a time when climate change is already threatening our coastal communities with rising water levels. Education, they say, is power. Now you know. And knowing means you can demand better from anyone who shows up with a contract and a promise. Here's the truth that nobody in power ever says plainly enough. Nigeria's problem with natural resources has never been the resource. It has always been the governance. Always. We have laws. The Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act exists. It requires licenses before anyone touches a mineral deposit. It requires environmental impact assessments. It has penalties for illegal mining. The legal architecture is already there. But laws without enforcement are just but a decoration on a wall. So what does responsible governance actually look like here? Let me spell it out, because our elected representatives should be writing this down. Before any commercial license is issued, any at all, there must be comprehensive scientific surveys. Where are these deposits exactly? How much of it exists? What is the radioactive content of each site? Truth is, you cannot govern what you have not measured. Every mining zone must have environmental and radiation health assessments, baseline data collected, monitoring systems established, worker protection protocols made mandatory. These are not bureaucratic luxuries. They are the minimum standard for protecting human beings. Communities must have legally binding benefit sharing arrangements, not verbal promises from a company representative who will be on a plane back to Europe in 2 years. Legal documents. royalty percentages, employment quotas for indigents, environmental restoration bonds held in escrow, binding, enforceable, and monitored. The proposed Bayelsa Waterways Regulatory Agency must be properly funded and fully empowered, not created as a political gesture and left to wither without budget. It needs qualified scientists, real monitoring equipment, actual legal authority to sanction violators, including powerful ones. Yes, powerful ones. And our universities like the Federal University of Sweden, the Niger Delta University, River State University of Technology, amongst others, must be commissioned as genuine scientific partners, not just decorations on a government committee. Researchers producing independent environmental data that cannot be manipulated by commercial pressure. Science must lead, community must benefit, government must govern. That is the formula. And if our leaders cannot commit to all three, they are really not ready to steward this blessing. Professor Teddy Charles Adias, a scholar who has studied this matter with rigor and with love for this region, writes these words, and I want you to hear them carefully. I am going to read them exactly as he wrote them. In his word, the imperative of governance and science is ultimately the imperative of justice, ensuring that the wealth beneath these shores serves those who live above them, not those who arrive by foreign vessels in the night. Read that again. Now slowly. The wealth beneath these shores must serve those who live above them, not those who arrive by foreign vessels in the night. That is not just academic language. That is a battle cry written in a professor's pen. It is the story of 1956 told forward. It is the lesson Otuabagi paid in oil spills and broken rivers so we would not have to repeat it again in black sand. The question is whether we are listening. My people, here is where we land. Otuabagi, 1956, black gold. Bayelsa Shores, 2025, black sand. Same land, same people. A second chance. This land keeps producing. This land keeps giving. Bayelsa indeed is not just the glory of all lands as a nickname. It is indeed the glory of all lands as a geological fact, a historical fact, and a spiritual fact. God has not abandoned this region. He keeps showing up even when our leaders have not always shown up for us. But blessing without governance, they say, is just future regrets. And we have already lived that story once, in the flesh, in the spills, in the communities that gave Nigeria its wealth and got poverty in return. We cannot afford a second chapter of the same story. So be informed, be loud. Tell your local government chairman, tell your state representative, tell your senator, tell your governor, tell them. Southern Voices podcast said, we know what is under our sand. We know what it is worth. And this time, we are not moving until the governance is right. The sand is dark, but our future does not have to be. This is the Southern Voices podcast. I am your host, Jessica Charles Adias. We speak because silence is too expensive. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay Southern. Bye-bye.